So we're just in this is a 2018 Toyota Hilux. Majority of them, this process is going to be the same from 2015-16 to 2021. Process will be the same. Taking off these two, popping this out, and could pop off this part, pop out the glove box, and pop the bottom panel off, and that'll allow us to remove the whole black bit and the screen, which is the head unit. This is the base model Hilux here, so fairly sort of basic on the head unit. Has no reverse camera, has steering wheel controls, which is good, so they will still work with the new Vhedia model. There's a USB and an auxiliary port down here. We will include in our kit a new USB port, which will give you two USBs, so a quick charge one and a pass-through one, which will be like plugging a USB into the actual device, and we'll also retain the factory one here. Doesn't do too much in regards, there's no CarPlay or anything going on here. Basically got the steering wheel, Bluetooth, and that's about it. You can also see some basic trip information here, so it does pick a little bit of data off the CAN system. Now depending on your version, you might have a bit more going on. Some cars will have 360 cameras, or like a factory just reverse camera. So our unit will work with all of that, and it comes with the CAN module, so it does connect into the car's network system. So should all be good. So the first step basically is just to pop these two little plastic type screws out of the top up here. It says 1, 2. So you can see them coming out here. And just the other one up here. So a little tip for getting out sort of like these, that one actually stayed in, but it's alright, we'll get it when it comes out, is you just want to not drop it on the floor like that, but just want to sort of spin it and not press in too much, because otherwise it isn't going to come out. And if you do sort of struggle a bit, you can sort of twist it and give it a bit of leverage behind it to get the pop out. Now just take your trim tools at it, including the kit here. Just sort of pop it in the bottom here, give it a little pull, and then just give it a pull around with your hand. That final privet just actually popped out there, all the way around to the other side, giving it a slight pull, and you'll see all the clips come out. And you can just sort of leave it hanging loose like that. And you got this piece of trim that runs across the whole dash there. Basically, same thing. You can basically get your hands in behind that, give that a little pull all the way down, and that comes out like that. So that's opened that up. Next thing is just the dash here. So if you get onto the far side, get your hand might be a trim tool one. So just get your fingers in the top here, and if you pop the cup holder in at the bottom, I'll wiggle on both sides a bit and it'll just sort of pop out, and then come and grab the actual glove box and give that a whole pull out, and you'll see that whole piece comes out like that. It's also a handy way, we'll not run cables behind here too. Now we're just going to pull out the bottom piece here. Again, get your trim tool in there. Once you get your trim tool in one side, you can normally pop it out along. So that's all good. You can sort of leave it hanging there like that, because you just got 4 10mm bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4 that we're going to undo, and then we're going to pull the whole unit out. Then once those 4 screws are out, put your hands on both sides and just give the whole unit like a wiggle, and you'll just feel everything will pop out. So see, Toyota's made that quite easy for you to get out. And then in the back here, it's got all these plugs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plugs. You just press on the top tab on them and pull them to get them all out. So fairly straightforward. There you have it, that's the old unit. I'll take that out. And these are the plugs we are left with here, as you can see. So, all fairly straightforward. Sorry, I forgot one. And that one there, your USB cable retention. So from the factory unit, you will have a couple of things going on here that you do need to take out. This one doesn't have it, but if you do have this airbag switch light, this needs to pop out and go in there, so pop the blank out. If you don't need it, leave the blank in. The other things, is all these yellow clips, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They pop off fairly easy. Put a screwdriver on one or both sides. I'll just lift them up, pop them off, slide them onto the new frame. That's all you need to do there. Brackets no longer needed on the new unit. It's stable without it, and that's it. Now we're just going to cover what you get in the kit. It does look like quite a bit here, but it's not too bad once you explain it. So obviously you get your main unit here. It's the whole Vhedia head unit and the plastic fascia that goes around. This here will be replaced in some models. You can see you pop it out of the back here, depending if you have that little module in your model or not. So it just pops out and you put your one in. Auxiliary plugs, antenna plug, Wi-Fi plug, GPS plug, main 20-pin plug. That's basically the main unit. Then we have our adapter cables. So these allow you to easily hook up the unit. So you'll actually see in your kit it does come with 2. You're only going to use the one that fits. So depending on the year of your the year of your model. So straight away you'll be able to tell. The main difference is one of them has these 2 fat plugs in them that have quite big pins in them, and the other one doesn't have plugs like that. Obviously it has the CAN module on it. If you use a different harness, you just have to change the CAN module into this other harness plug. So that's basically that. So that'll retain all your features, reverse camera, whatever else you have going on, steering wheel controls. You've got pre-outs. If you're just going to keep factory speakers and stuff, you don't have to worry about these. We will release a speaker pack later on, which will have an amp, because the Hiluxes definitely need a bit of improvement there. But you don't need to use it. It's just pre-outs to run an amp. Now, the GPS, square little thing. A single USB, plugs into the black auxiliary plugs on the back of the unit, pink plug. Twin USB and also a microphone, external microphone, plugs into those auxiliary plugs again on the back. USB retention cable to retain the USB port down the bottom there. A reverse camera and the secondary camera inputs, so you can actually run 2 cameras on these little units. Auxiliary, won't be using this, it's a brown plug, it's just auxiliary in. Wi-Fi antenna, you can just leave it floating behind the back. We just make an external one because it allows us to get a better Wi-Fi pickup if we do need it. External microphone, OBD2 scan tool, so you can get your gauges from your engine data up in the Vhedia Head Unit, and trim removal tools. That's everything that's in your kit. The first thing we're going to do is grab our ease adapter cable, this big cable here. The easiest way to check what plugs you have is just pretty much like on a see if you've got a fat 10 pin and 6 pin plug. If you do, that will decide the harness you're going to use. We just include both because it's a bit hard to guess the changeover year. I think it's around 2020, but sometimes they have either on them. That's why we include both harnesses. So the harness you don't use can just be put in the bin. So we grab this. If you are using the other harness, just remember to swap over the cam box. Now just want to go through and plug these where they go into. So that big fat 10 pin one goes into there. This big fat 6 pin one goes into here. And we've got this one here. They can only plug into the plugs they're going to fit into, so it's all fairly easy. So you'll see this one's loose. Is not used, so this could be used on some models and not like others. Just depends. There isn't any factory reverse camera on this one, so that can sometimes be what one of the plugs in is, and that plug there. So that's the base model. This is all pretty straightforward. So that's what we do here, and then the one cable we have left over was the USB retention one, so we'll just put our cable onto that. That's your USB retention, so that's to retain that USB down there, so we'll plug this into one of our USBs coming out of the head unit. Now especially when you grab the head unit, we want to put this the big 20 pin black plug into the back of the head unit, and the antenna plug in. Now all we're doing here is we just want to power on everything. We want to check that the unit powers up, that we have some power to start with, which is always a good start, and that we get sound and radio. So straight away we've got head units powering up. So depending on what your car has, you want to check steering wheel controls, obviously sounds coming through radio stations, and put it into reverse for reverse camera. So you can see how it showed up the door open there. It is picking up the CAN bus of the car. So straight away go in the radio, do a scan. So sound's coming through. I'm just using the steering wheel controls now. So that was all working. So that's basically making sure our steering wheel controls work. So it's going through the modes. So they all work fine. We've got sound, we've got the radio. If you had a reverse camera, you'd put the car into a reverse and check the reverse comes out. Here it's coming up because it's picking, because obviously it's hooked in through the CAN system. It can tell the car's in reverse just from the CAN system. There isn't any camera. So the kit doesn't include a 1080p reverse camera as well. So if you don't have the factory camera, you can just use the camera that comes in the kit. So that's pretty simple. That's all that done. Now we'll do the rest of the wires. Just going to quickly jump into the reverse camera here, because after you've just tested that some of the power works, you are going to have to obviously run a reverse camera. If you have a factory reverse camera, just skip this little part because you won't have to worry about it. Or if you want to run, we're going to include this reverse camera in all the kits, so you can actually, it is 1080p, so pretty good quality. So if you do want to, and AHD, which is good quality. If you do want to run this as a secondary camera, you can, and you can put it into the F camera output. So you can just use it as a secondary camera if you want a camera on top of the canopy, or even a camera at the front of the vehicle. So we'll just quickly cover what you're going to do here. So you're basically going to run it off the back here, and you're going to give it power from this is DC cable here. You've got obviously red's going to go to positive, black and red, it's going to be like negative. It just needs to come off the reverse lights, so it has power when the reverse light comes on. So you got two options really. One, you hook it into the reverse lights, just like a tap it in with however you like. Or two, you tap into your trailer connection. Just check the wiring diagram on a line, depending how many pins you have, and you can just tap into those wires for your reverse lights. So that's going to give the camera power when it comes on. So like the camera here, mount wherever you want it. It's obviously a bit adjustable with the adjust here. It has multi holes. So majority of people, pretty much you want to be able to see backwards and the tow ball. So I'll mount that where you need to. It has to sit up this way, is the correct way. Obviously power goes into this DC here, and the other cable, like the yellow one here, I will plug into here, and this has to run back to the head unit. Some models will have a cable coming out on both ends like this. If your model only has a cable coming out on one end, just use the end that has the cable coming out on the head unit end, if that makes sense. So if, for example, if this cable wasn't here on this one, this would plug into the camera, and the other end would go to the head unit. So this needs to just run along pretty much. The best place normally is just to throw it, so this is a tray back, so you could just sort of run it along with the other cables. So I find where the other cable's going back, like normally that's going above the chassis rail, and just run it all the way along. So normally you just want to run that cable back with the other cables you can find. So normally they are running on top of the chassis rail, so run them along with that. Back to the then, like usually if you get underneath the car here, there's obviously going to be some grommets around. There's normally some under the firewall, sorry, on the firewall, and also some under the seat. So this is where I'd run your cable up, pop it through here, and run it in behind, and then obviously run it under the plastic door trim, and then up and behind the head unit, so it all looks tidy. So if you just pop up this trim here and get under here, you'll see where that grommet comes up. I think it just comes up just here actually. Run the cable under, along there, up here, tuck it up here, and you've already got this glove box off, so you can get the wire up coming up here, run it along here, through the back, and it'll sit up behind the head unit, nice and tidy. Just got to go through the rest of our wires that we want to put in. This one here, with the two USBs on the mic on it, obviously it's going to go into the back of the head unit, into the auxiliary plugs. One of them is going to go into this one, and I don't have one in the kit, so that's going to keep our factory USB port down the bottom there. This other one here, I haven't got one in this kit, but you'll be getting a rocker panel, or a rocker panel switch that'll fit into one of the blanks, so you can put the pass-through into there, and then that switch will also have a quick charge on it, which it connects into, just needs to connect into ACC and ground on the car. So that's basically that. Then we have our external mic, so yeah, it goes in that same cable. Just push these together, they take a good push, so that's a good push. You'll hear it click and you can see it's pretty flush. Run this wherever suits. So that external mic, I guess on these ones, the you can just sort of obviously pop it out wherever you want, or you could run it across behind, down the bottom here behind this bit of plastic, and also obviously I'll pop out the one on this side, other vent, and that'll allow you to actually pretty much get it and probably tuck it into the trim, or you could actually even pop the actual trim off and run it up the top. Just depends how far you want to go, or you can not use the external mic at all and just see how you go with the internal mic. To test the internal mic, you can just mock it up here, rest it in, and make it cool before you put it all back. Then there's your reverse camera plug. So if you had, on this model here, in your harness there's going to be a few ones that say a cam in. So you can see one of them is going, should be going to, you can see one of them is from like this plug here. So obviously, if this car did have a factory reverse camera, we wouldn't be using so like this one. We'd be so like using the one here that is plugged into here. It is quite interesting that it does have, might even have like wires running on the models that don't even have the reverse camera, which could be handy. We might look into that. But so if you did have a factory camera, we'd take the actual one that's connected in and we'll put it into the cam in. If you're running our aftermarket camera, you would take a long cable you run from the back, plug it into here. This here is not needed, it's a reverse like trigger wire, so you can just so like take this out of the way, because we can get the reverse signal from the CAN bus on this car. So that's how that works. So for this case here, I'm just going to plug it into here. And if you do want to use the camera that came in the kit as a secondary camera, you can just plug it into like the F cam. Again, no need to hook up that red wire or like anything. Just wherever you mount the camera, just have like power, and it can go into the F cam input here, and you just have to choose it on the head unit to use it. We've got our GPS. So you want this to have a clear view of the sky. So it's up to you where you mount this. That is pretty thin plastic behind there, so you could even stick this unit just up on the bottom of the dash there. Stick the unit up like that. It's just going to give you a relative position, so it doesn't matter if it's upside down or which way it goes around. So that's going to give a direct view of the sky, and it's only going to have like this on top of it, which is fine because it's pretty weak plastic. So you can even go a bit further. I'd go as far forward as you can stick it, which is almost to the vents blowing air out. And then like stick that on. This here will screw into the GPS one, which will screw on in a second. Third USB, this will just sort of plug in the back, handy for extra things. So if you're going to use one of our dash cams, or we have a USB modem coming out, we have a tire pressure thing coming out as well. That isn't out by now. And the Wi-Fi antenna. Again, screw this onto the back of the head unit, and you can leave this floating loose. So putting it all together, GPS screws onto the GPS one. Says GPS on top of this brass thread, so you should be able to work it out. Screw it on hand tight. Wi-Fi goes on the other side, says Wi-Fi. Can't go too wrong there. Now get your plugs. This is the one with all the USB ports on it. These can only go into the port they can go into, so just make sure you don't put it in a port that has less pins than it should. They obviously match up to where they go in, but you could jam it into like a smaller one if you really tried. This plugs into here. So it's good, double checking everything. And your antenna plugs over here. So it's all fairly easy. And you got that pink extra USB. That just plugs into the 4-pin one on the top here. So you can tape these up a bit, tidy them up so they can tuck nicely in behind. And basically you're just going to go and put the unit back in now. line up all your plastic clips and give the unit a good push. Then test everything again before you go any further. As always, the key trick here, just in case something's gone wrong. So again, making sure your unit powers up, steering wheel controls, reverse camera, like radio and sound.
How did you compare, David? And we'll spend an extensive time in this interview talking about your coaching.
So steering wheel controls are working.
Captaining a premiership.
If you had a camera here, you'd check the reversing. It goes into reverse fine, obviously.
The emotions and the lot. It's ongoing.
It's even good then to start the car sometimes, just to make sure everything's still fine.
Overall, is the worst player.
So, got everything working. Turn it off again. And we can carry on with the install. Then obviously all goes back in reverse from the way you put it in. AC, glove box. The aircon. The aircon actually needs to be connected and it's popped off. So make sure that's slided in before you pop that back in. And then your trim goes back across the top up here. All these clips are plastic, so just make sure you always do line them up before you clip them down. And if you're finding it's not clipping back in, just double check that you had them all lined up correctly. Obviously this pops back in. Put your two screws back in above the speedo, and that's basically your install all done. So fairly quick and easily install really to do on these Hiluxes, and now it looks bloody good.
You got any CDs? Yeah. One Direction, Jonas Brothers. Oh, Mrs. must have left them. Michael Bublé's greatest hits. Yeah, that's I saw him in 2018. So did I. Did you love it? Mate, don't get me started on how much I loved it.
Celebrate the things that bring you joy. Learn ways to look after you at thinkmentalhealthwa.com.
So the only other thing this model did have is you could see some fuel information. So that information's still all available here on the unit. Go into their fuel info. It's got your fuel info. Go back. Got your vehicle info, which is pretty basic on this sort of model, but shows you like the lights are on and what doors are open and stuff. So all that's still coming through from the CAN system on the vehicle.